Nope, she's not getting over. Okay, thanks, Dad. You know, I didn't know a lot about track. He would call me and he'd say, how do the boys do in track? Great. I don't know. Well, what did they run? I don't know. Then I mixed stuff up, and he knew I was lying, so he just started calling my husband. When my dad was just 17, he enlisted in the Navy to serve in World War II. Didn't tell anybody, just went and did it. Parents really didn't know where he was, and then it was time when he turned 18, they showed up at his door wanting to arrest him because he didn't sign up for the draft. He was already there. You know, he didn't talk a lot about his time in the Navy, except that he had shared with us that he was serving in the South Pacific. They told him to pack up all his belongings, write a note to his parents, he wouldn't be coming home, and they were gonna, you know, parachute him out of a plane. And he said, well, I've never been in a plane, and apparently the guy said, it doesn't really matter. He said, what if I don't want to go? The guy said, well, just right out the plane. That was kind of how my dad treated everything else with me, the kids. I think he kept that middle stance. He didn't talk about his military service very much. August 6th, he always did a toast to the Enola Gay for dropping the bomb and ending the war. But over the past few years, he really did start to talk about his time more. It was fascinating. He apparently worked in prison camps, things that I had no idea about till just the past few months. Shirley, who's in the back, was instrumental. The World War II Museum kept asking my dad to come share stories. They recorded veterans. He didn't want to go, didn't want it to be about him. Finally, Shirley convinced him and another gentleman from here to go. I was fortunate enough to sit while he did the interview, and he also donated a Japanese rifle that he had. I learned all sorts of things that I wish I had known earlier in my life. In addition to knowing so much about World War II, he was an avid Civil War enthusiast. Another thing I really didn't care about or interest I shared with him, but we spent endless hours on battlefields. He would tell me who did what. We'd travel all over. I didn't care. I wanted to crawl in the cannons, wanted to climb the forts. He read every book on the Civil War, and it became my husband's personal challenge to buy a book at Christmas that my husband hadn't read. Didn't usually happen, but every now and then there was a victory, and he'd say, yes, I did it. My dad was also a nature lover. He loved going to his garden at Knott's Island. He would wake up in the morning, drive an hour and a half, work in his garden. You're probably picturing like a nice little flower garden. No way. This could have fed a village. He and his good friend Dale would sit out there. He loved, if somebody said you can't grow something, he would prove them wrong. The man raised kiwi at Knott's Island after they said it couldn't be done. He hand-pollinated all those flowers, got it to grow as big as a trunk, and then had to go back and tell the people, you were wrong, it could grow. He really did like to be, you know, he liked to prove himself right. He would bring all his vegetables, bushels, those of you who know what I'm talking about. He would just show up at your house with bushels of vegetables, which people found, I'm sure they liked it, but he would never take my advice to clean them or get them, you know, packaged right. So you'd have to bring in like half pound of dirt, worms would be everywhere, bugs everywhere. And then he'd call like the next day and say, did you eat it all? No, Dad, I couldn't eat 3 bushels of corn in 2 days. But he loved giving people things. He was also a fabulous cook. He dirtied every pot in the kitchen. My dad fostered my sense of adventure. He was a true adventurous. When I was little, now just so y'all know, my dad married Miss Virginia. She was a little bit, my mother was a wonderful human, but I don't think she was as adventurous and probably as appreciative of dirt as my dad was. But I don't know how he talked my mom into doing this. They bought an old Dodge van. He converted it. I know you're thinking like luxury TVs, this and that. No, there was a trunk bolted to the bottom, and he got me a nice can to pee in, and we traveled all over. And if we came upon a woods, a marsh, or anything with an animal in it, we were stopped. I was convinced my dad had some sort of reading disability, that if the words private property, do not trespass were strung together, he could not read them because we went everywhere. Again, still don't know how the woman did it. Finally, I think we were with Nick and Ann, and a whole group, they took that van to Ocracoke and a blizzard came. It was in March. I remember my mother screaming, the van's rocking. She's like, we're gonna die! I mean, it was awful. That was the last trip we took in the van. It took almost dying to stop those road trips. He also fostered a sense of loving animals. My dad loved every animal he could get. He let me have everything. When I was 5, I was very young. And he decided that I needed to have animals to make me feel better. Again, you're probably imagining kittens, puppies, any sort of nice sweet thing. Nope, he went to the biology lab at Bayside, and he would bring me home an iguana to hang with. He would bring me home one of Nick's boas. He would, I think there was a raccoon, not a raccoon, I had a raccoon. He had a descented skunk that Sally had. Not descented, things smelled, oh dear God. But my mother would come in and I'd be snuggled up with a boa, and she would just say, oh, Jesus. But it did help me recover. When I was in 2nd grade, I found a little raccoon. Most people would make me take it to a rehab place. Nope, he helped me raise it. It became the best dog we ever had. I loved that raccoon. He let me have a Great Dane, you name it. He even let me have a goat that my boyfriend and I at the time went and got because my dad asked me to clear the hill. I thought, I'm getting a goat, it can eat the whole hill. Turned out that goat, I think, was a vegetarian because it didn't touch the hill. But that goat stayed with us until one day my dad bent over and it butted him down the driveway, and then, Sabrina had to go. But one of my dad's favorite animals was a dog named Peanut that Stephen and I had. He loved that dog. We always dropped him off, we went on trips, we'd come back. Well, I knew my dad and I knew how he thought, but we called him on the way back from Nags Head, and I said, we're on our way, House Peanut will be there around noon. Not so good, which those of you who know my dad, not so good means. I said, what do you mean not so good? He died the night you dropped him off, so you might just want to take 664 and head home. I'm like, Dad, what? Okay, we were devastated. I'm like, how am I telling the kids? But that was how my dad dealt with stuff. It was just factual, way it is. I said, why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to ruin your trip. My dad took us on so many adventures, and then when the kids came along, he took them on adventures too. My dad loved his friend Nick. They took us to places. Now I think back and I'm like, there's no way I would let my kids go there. My dad, and this is to sound weird to those of you who don't know us, my dad and Nick loved Jamaica. Ian loved Jamaica. We knew people, they knew people in Jamaica. Troy was with us on these adventures, and he knows. It's lucky he and I survived childhood. However, so for our honeymoon, Stephen and I invited my dad to join us at the end of the honeymoon because he knew Jamaica. My dad took us all over the place. I had prepared my husband. He's like, no. He took us horseback riding up through this village, and it's where I learned, one, my husband doesn't like horses. Two, my husband didn't know not to wear shorts on riding a horse. It was a whole thing. But we went to Brownstown. These guys got in a fight. They're running through with machetes. One's literally trying to kill another one. And my dad's like, must be over a woman. I'm like, oh my God, can we get always straight with the one singers. My dad was not your run-of-the-mill dad. I probably aged him many years. He looked at me, he had patience, but he didn't say much. But he put up with me. He coached softball teams. He let me know when I screw up, which was quite a bit. And then he passed that on to love of my boys. He took us to Alaska, made sure that we got to go to the glaciers. I have Jackie's little exercise falling down one of the crevices. I'm panicking the whole time, and my dad's like, well, it'd be a good way for him to go. No, Dad, he's my child. Don't want him to go. We were lucky to have him as long as we did. Just this past 3 months ago, he was able to attend Drake and Gracie's wedding, and he was so happy. He was so looking forward to Jack's graduation from college this May, and he didn't make it. And he really enjoyed the last few months with Joe living back in town, being able to get to spend time with him. We knew he was slowing down. We didn't expect him to pass so quickly. I know a lot of you have asked how he passed. I took him to the ER on Christmas Eve. We thought, oh, another quick trip to get fluid off. And he had, turned out he had COVID, and he just couldn't get over it. He went downhill pretty quickly. The first day, the doctor said, well, couldn't you keep him a few days till he could get stronger? And both me and my dad at the same time were like, no. He didn't want to come to me. I didn't want him because he was so independent and stubborn. But then when we realized that he was not doing well, he came home with us. But my dad never said, am I dying? We never talked about it because he thought he was going to beat this till the very end. He wanted to get back here to Tuckahoe Pines. He loved the people here. He wanted to come home. Every day he'd make us dress him, put him in his khakis, and say, can I go home today? And I'd say, let's try tomorrow. And of course he never made it, but I'm sure his spirit is back here and as well at the beach. Thank you all for sharing your stories over the past few weeks. Thank you all who traveled very far to come, driving from Iowa, flying from Atlanta. My dad loved you all in his own way, and my son has a few things to say. The other one's going to read a poem, and then we really would like to hear some stories from you. So thank you.